Hey, thank you for joining me for another video. It's been the first in a little while. There's a lot of things going on in the world as per usual, and here I'm keeping up with the signs of the times. It's things that more than ever that people are starting to feel there's a real expectancy of a big change to come, a change that we've been waiting for quite some time. Now, I just want to read a little bit of script to you as I've prepared a few slides as well, and this is all I would be really wanting to say. When you look at mass immigration into Europe and even America, when you see France falling apart, when you see Russia at war and the West preparing for the ultimate confrontation with them, when you then look at the Catholic Church in crisis and wonder what on earth is going on to a never-ending stream of shock, confusion, and a sense of increasing evil everywhere, you have to wonder what it all means. Why is it all happening at the same time? I am here to tell you that everything is fitting in a timely manner, where many informed people such as myself see clearly what we are living through. We have been expecting this for some time. There is a great expectancy in these days, and I feel as if it's now arrived. With all the bad things gaining more momentum at a faster pace, at the same time, all we are hearing about is AI, artificial intelligence, and robotics sprouting up more and more in time for the Great Reset of 2030. Cashless societies, many famous people from politicians to ministers losing their bank accounts because they're not going along with the narrative of the West. You can't build back better unless you break apart what is already in place. The West is breaking apart, and most people can't see what's in front of them. I am going to be highlighting some old prophecies and some new ones today in this video. I will be adding highlighted prophecies of one of the Church's greatest mystics and visionaries, Marie Julie Jahenney. And what concerns France, Islamist immigration, the Church, and all that will occur very soon. Things will be getting worse, but there is hope of a promised time of peace. We have to hang on to this hope and do all that we can to spread this knowledge and hopefully inform more people. But for now, let's weigh up all that is happening in this time and logically see the significance of it all. And I invite everyone, especially those without faith. I'm very conscious more and more that many people may stumble across some of my videos on this channel. If you're an atheist, if you have no belief, if you're a skeptic, agnostic, perfect, all I recall everyone of faith and none is use your head to realise this isn't one or two little prophecies. This is dozens of coincidences, dozens of prophecies happening at the same time. Some of it's a little repetitive because I want to keep that narrative of using our brains to realise there has to be a reason for all what's happening right now. When you start realising that all these things that we've been told about repeatedly and warned about repeatedly are actually coming to its fulfilment, not once or twice, not two or three, four things, but dozens at the same time. And it's this parallel between what's happening in society, especially in the West, Russia being key, France being key nations, and also what's happening inside the church with so many God incidences coming at the same time as this parallel narrative unfolding with alarming rates that I've never seen before in my life. I've got a few slideshows to show you as I speak along. Some of it or most of it is going to be off the cuff, so bear with me, and in the meantime hit the thumbs up, subscribe, and let's do this. So Marie Julie Jahenney, she is French, so no doubt I'm pronouncing the name very badly, and forgive me for all the pronunciations to come. She was one of the greatest mystics of the church, but yet little is known about her. And during that time period when she lived between 1850 and 1941, those dates are long before Pope Leo XIII's vision in 1884, his mystical experience of where God granted the devil the 20th century to test the church. It's also the time where Padre Pio and many other mystics were alive, and she also caught the end lives of those of the last select visionaries, I believe. But like repeated warnings from others, she does go into great detail in her writings of natural calamities, earthquakes, famines, and the signs in the heavens that's to come. But here's the ones that's quite unique to her, is civil war in France is the spark. And this is why it's prompted me to do this video, all that's been happening the last few weeks in France. Italy is also prophesied to endure much of the same hardships as well as England, with revolutions and war. Persecution of the Catholic Church with total closure of all churches and religious houses. Haven't we seen precursors of this during the lockdowns as well? Here's the big one, is the destruction of Paris, and those doing that such destruction, Russia and the Mohammedans. Again, sorry for the pronunciation, but as we would this day would be saying Muslims. We have a 2-day period of darkness that she prophesied about, and that would come before the well-known prophecy of the 3 days of darkness. The 3 days of darkness is well known by many, and it's also repeated from everyone from Marie Julie Jahenney and Catherine Emmerich, right through to Padre Pio and Saint Faustina. But she also speaks of the 2 days. And here's the unique one again, the return of the French monarch, King Henry, King Henri, and the Holy Pope. She speaks a lot about the fact of a time when the monarch is going to come, and this is where things turn back. This is where, after all the destruction and all the nonsense that's going on, we're going to see the French monarch, the descendant of King Louis, the fact that that dynasty, the bloodline, has continued after the French Revolution. Here's a quote I want to stand out as well. The Blessed Virgin told Marie Julie back in 1895, "The children of France will become the children of another kingdom, despite their claims of being French." What could this mean? Well, right now, riots across France are all over the nation, and it doesn't seem to be calming down. And this isn't the case of they're all rioting because of another poor soul that's been killed by the police. It goes much further, and I want to now bring in a few minutes worth of news articles before picking back up on the commentary.
So France is burning, but where did the spark come from? Last week's shooting was certainly the trigger, but the embers were already smoking by then. Why? Because of immigration. And try to understand this beyond the left-right binary. France's demography has changed a lot in the last decades. Today, there are 7 million immigrants in this country. That's around 10% of the population. So take 10 people and one of them will be an immigrant. Around 13% of them are of Algerian descent. 12% are from Morocco. 4.4% from Tunisia and 3.8% from Turkey. So these are all non-white people, most of them Arabic, African and Muslim.
People talk about riots, but for those of us who have to deal with it, it's war. Those people who stand in front of us, they're there to kill us.
France has fallen, come after days and days of dramatic scenes across France. These violent riots causing damage, destruction and even looting. The country being torn apart as authorities grapple with violence and chaos in numerous cities across the country.
There is the French for 20 years, or certainly some commentators, have described these inner cities as the lost territories of France. So this is where a parallel society has grown up, dominated either by Islamists or drug lords.
What are the demographics of the people who are getting involved in this rioting and this looting and this disorder in France, and why?
Well, I think it's not something about political or social demands. What they are saying, it's most, we can say, criminals, and they are here to loot and to burn buildings. You can see that it has nothing to do with the death of the young people, and there is a case about it. Justice will pass if needed, you know. It's just a bad excuse to do that. And if you look at the video, it's striking because you can see that there is no anger. They are just laughing when they burn something, when they attack the police. So it's people that they don't feel French. They have their own culture, they have their own norms, they have their own, let's say, rules. Because when you look at it, what is this? What are these events? The name of it's mass immigration, and yes, 5 mass immigration as his predecessor. If you look at the numbers, it's last year 500,000 people. If you have huge numbers of immigration, you won't be able to integrate anyone.
And then be protected, because then the police don't want to then stoke further racial tensions, and we see it on the streets over here. And this is why I'm talking about it so much. I had so many conversations over the weekend with a lot of people who are both involved in politics and involved in current affairs, or who are just ordinary, normal people who are worried that what we're seeing on the streets of France could well happen over here in Britain. I am worried that it is a matter of time. Would it be unfair for me to suggest, Charles-Henri, that France has imported its own problems?
Of course, we have done it. You have two pieces, let's say, for immigration. There is, of course, the ideology of the French politician, but you have also the European Union, because with the Schengen area, with all the immigration rules of the EU, you cannot lower immigration numbers within the EU. You can see it with Italy. Meloni was elected. She was going to reduce immigration. She cannot reduce at all immigration within the EU. So towards immigration, within the EU, we will have anyway a huge problem. So it is a European issue.
You saw what happened with the priests. It's only going to get worse. And Hillary Clinton wants to allow 550% more people from that region into our country, and we have no idea who they are, where they come from, where their documentation is. It's only going to get worse, and it's going to start getting bad in our country. We're letting people come in by the tens of thousands. You see what happened to the French priest. A friend of mine, he said he was going to France like 3-4 months ago. I saw him yesterday. I said, how'd you like France? He said, I wouldn't go to France. I wouldn't go to France, because France is no longer France. France is no longer France. They won't like me for saying that, but you see what happened in Nice. You see what happened yesterday with the priest who was supposed to be a spectacular man. France is no longer France. And this world better be very careful, and they better get very tough.
So that last clip there that you saw with Donald Trump was actually 6 years ago. He's speaking about the priest that was killed by the Muslim men that went into his church during Mass and killed him. I think they may have beheaded him. So 6 years later, are we seeing the mass immigration still in the tens of thousands into America, as well as all over Europe? You saw with the news reporter at the beginning exactly some of the countries, for example, coming into France. And it's not just France that's got those demographics. We're also looking at Italy, and we're looking at Britain as well. And I dare say anywhere else in between, but these are the three main countries. And one man spoke of having prophecies of the Islamification of Europe. He didn't put it out publicly, but those most closest to him have stated in many occasions that Pope St. John Paul II had prophetic visions and mystical experiences throughout most of his life, especially as Pope. And I completely believe that. And he even spoke about the Islamification of Europe in what he saw in visions. Now, I'm not saying that because I'm anti-Muslim or anti-any faith. In fact, I find a great time of joy when I'm sharing my faith with many other people. And likewise, when I hear more about them. My current job has me meeting many Muslims and Hindus and Sikhs and any other people of faith and none combined on a daily basis. They're the most generous, they're the most kindest. And I don't know if it's culture or if it's religious reasons, but I always feel I get treated so well getting into different Asian family homes with my job. And I have the greatest respect for Muslims, for Islam in whole, because the focus, their prayer life, their identity in their homes, their identity in the street is how they live, how they speak, how they worship when they go to the mosques. They really put Catholics to shame, especially like Ramadan compared to Lent, when it comes to how we fast, how it comes to giving something up. We've had such watered down Catholicism for so long, we should be embarrassed when it comes to putting ourselves up against the zeal of the Muslims. So I speak greatly of them, and I have great respect for them with their faith, and even without my own faith that would still stand. But with my faith, it also tells me like we have to love everyone, and it is always love. And I think it was Archbishop Fulton J. Sheen that spoke about how Our Lady has the Muslims where she wants them from now, based on Our Lady of Fatima, the apparitions there, which we all know started off with Russia, the prophecies and everything else. But it was also named after Muhammad's most beloved daughter. So I wouldn't be surprised if places like Fatima and others speak about the future prophetic visible signs that is mentioned in Garabandal and in Medjugorje. There's every chance it could be more. But I want to go further on now into the next few slides. Why is it important now? The French aren't new to a revolution. The French aren't new to riots. We've seen the Yellow Vest protests. We've seen protests against the pensions, this and that. But this is mayhem, like you've just heard, coming from the French citizens themselves. It's the demographics that France is no longer France in the terms of that once great nation known as the first daughter of the Catholic Church. We've had the French Revolution and the evolution since then, where it's degraded further and further away from the faith. Christianity, the womb of Christianity was Europe, and France was one of the great countries of that time that established civilization, Christian civilization in Europe. But now it's the case that it's more Muslim than anything because of the amount of atheism, the apostasy against the Catholic faith. So the Muslims are coming in droves, and they're not living according to customs. They're not living the French way. They're not French. They don't say they're French. So what's happening? We've already seen the news articles. We've seen the prophecy. Very, very little of Marie Julie Jahenney. I mean, there's volumes of her prophecies over all that life time that she lived. But let's look at a couple other ones here, because now I want to start putting things into perspective to why now. It could be tomorrow, it could be 5 years, but it's not going to be decades and decades away, I don't believe. There's too much happening now that there's a significant crossroads of time that we're living in. So why now? A few things I've repeated before. According to Garabandal in the 1960s, there would be 4 more popes after John the 23rd, one of whom would have a short reign, and then we're into the new era. I'm going to highlight as well a few other things surrounding Pope Francis and why he especially is the significant pope of many prophecies for now, today. So there we are. We've had John the 23rd at the top, and then Garabandal says there would be 4 more. We had Pope Paul VI there on the left. Then we had John Paul I, who only reigned for 33 days, fulfilling the prophecy of the short reign pope. Then we've had John Paul II, and then Pope Benedict XVI. That is your 4 popes according to Garabandal in the 1960s. We are in the new era with Pope Francis. Now the next slide puts a lot more together for him. Pope Francis comes at the end of the list of St. Malachi, where the Irish saint gave a list of many popes to come from his era to now, and the last one, as we know, is Petrus Romanus. There's still a question mark round about the fact, is it Francis or not, because Anne Catherine Emmerich prophesied the time of the 2 popes. Now, the prophesied time of the 2 popes again fits with Francis and Pope Benedict. But then we have Marie Julie Jahenney, and this is the thing that's added in now, is the fact that we see everything happening in France. People are starting to notice that the fact that France is no longer France, that the Kingdom of France, people within France are no longer saying they're French. Why? Because 10% of it at least is made up of immigrants coming over from Arab and Muslim nations. Then we have at the top right there, Fatima. Pope Francis was the Pope that saw the centenary of Fatima. Pope Francis is also the pontiff now that's seen Russia back on the warpath and how important Russia was for that consecration to be done. The deadline was 1960, but a lot of entrustment seems to have been accepted by John Paul II's consecration in 1984. But then we still haven't had the era of peace, and yet Russia's back in the warpath. We're at nuclear Armageddon like never before, not even with the Cuban Missile Crisis, because all of NATO's backing up Ukraine. Now, there's another clip I'm going to show you shortly. It's Pope Francis being interviewed, and he's speaking about how the Vatican are working on a secret peace treaty to give to Zelensky and Putin to bring about peace to this war. Why is that significant? Because Garabandal also spoke about the fact that it's when the Pope goes to Moscow that everything breaks loose, that everything hits the fan, and that's where we're going to see these prophesied revolutions given with the many mystics, saints and visionaries. We're going to see the revolutions, we're going to see the Great War, we're going to see devastation, we're going to see the persecution of the church. When you see the Pope going to Moscow, get praying like never before, because that is the key moment where things will seem to be calm at first, but then it all hits off shortly after his return to the Vatican after going to Moscow.
Gulliver, yesterday Pope Francis wrapped up a 3-day visit to Hungary. While he was there, he said that he was working on a peace mission to bring the war in Ukraine to an end. Take a listen to what the Pontiff had to say.
We talked about this because everyone's interested in the roads to peace. I'm willing. I'm willing to do whatever needs to be done. Also, there's a mission going on right now, but it's not public yet. Let's see how it goes. When it's public, I'll talk about it.
Una missione, ma ancora non è pubblica. Vediamo come quando sarà pubblica la dirò.
Now, why have I got these other two highlighted here with the Akita prophecies and Garabandal? Well, we'll go with Garabandal. We've already highlighted the 4 more popes. We've done that. Now we've had Francis. We have Francis still. And Garabandal speaks about a time where this illumination of conscience, the great warning, is going to come, and it'll coincide at the time of a synod, a great synod. Now, synods have came many, many times, and more will continue. It's like the short councils of the bishops and whatever, but we're in a time of a really unique synod right now, where it's a synod and synodality, which has already now been further planned to go on into 2024. Now, the first big meeting that's to come after all the feedback from every parish in the world where people are putting in for this synod, we're going to hear what the Vatican's taken from that data, from the feedback from the faithful, and maybe there's going to be a schism. Many people believe there's a chance of a schism coming within the next 18 months or so, because they're meeting this October 2023, and then they're meeting next October 2024. Now, there's a couple of significances there straight away that it's best to be mentioned, and I'm going to just bring up the next slide before coming back to this one. October is significant because Pope Leo XIII, up there in the top left, had his his mystical experience where God granted a century for Satan to test the church. Pope Leo had that mystical experience on October 13th, 1884, during the time period of Marie Julie Jahenney. But then, exactly 33 years later, to the day, the age of Christ, Our Lady gives the miracle of the sun in front of 70,000 people at Fatima, and those are the 3 children in the photograph. The eldest was Lucia, aged 10. And then, on October 13th, 1973, Our Lady gives another message to Sister Sasagawa in Akita. Now, there's a significance with Akita, where it speaks about bishop against bishop, cardinal against cardinal. Many, many people that have devotion to Our Lady, especially the priests, will be despised by their confreres. She spoke about a time where the chastisement would be so great, it would be nothing seen before on earth. Up to 2/3 of humanity could be wiped out. If, the big if, we don't turn back to God, which she's repeated from Fatima and further back to La Salette and many others right through till now. And we're still not listening, and look where it's heading. Now you'll see the arrows going across there from Sister Sasagawa to underneath Pope Francis with the Amazon Synod. What's important with the Amazon Synod? Well, that's where we had the worship of the Pachamama in the Vatican Gardens and all round St. Peter's Square, causing much confusion and scandal to many faithful around the world. The Synod and Synodality this October and next October of the meetings, and he's inviting people like Father James Martin to some other cardinals and cardinals-elects and bishops that have got a lot of questions round about them, and other Catholic podcasts have been speaking out and highlighting many unsavoury things about them. Now, this fulfills not only the Garabandal prophecy, or it could fulfill it, I should say, the fact that there could be a schism in the Synod, and I think they really are pushing for blessings of so-called gay marriage, and I think that could be the schism. And there's an old saying that when the church falls, the world falls. So I think between now and 2024, the end of 2024, there's going to be a lot of pandemonia, all evil on this earth. Not only all this in society, France, Europe, but it's also going to be the American election, and we already see what the establishment was up to, trying to get Trump out for the 4 years that he was in. There's a lot going to come, my dear friends, between now and then, and I believe America is going to try, the establishment is going to try so hard to make sure Trump never gets back into office. He delayed the globalist agenda by 4 years as much as he could by being president and not playing ball with them. And they're ramping things up so fast to get everything in place for what they want and make up some time and get things in more speedily. Now, we go back to the next slide to highlight the fact that why I've highlighted Akita and the prophecies. Now, the reason I've highlighted them is because this very year, 2023, it's the 50th anniversary of Akita. These prophecies of doom, but the promise, the fact that it's a big if over it if we don't change. Now things are rolling out like we aren't listening, we're not paying attention, we're not doing what's asked of us, and yet there's always a chance of change. But Russia's back in the warpath. We've got biblical proportions of immigration coming through, so there you are. We're already getting set for revolution. Is it Islamic revolution? Is it communist revolution? Is it both? Probably, the way things are going. Now, Akita prophecy, the Akita apparitions were never spoken of since the 70s, I believe that was done. But yet, as the Amazon Synod began a couple of years back there, a few years ago, with the Pachamama and all sorts, that very same day, for the first time in decades, Sister Sasagawa, who I believe is now in her 90s and lived a private, quiet life as the nun she is, spoke out saying that her guardian angel appeared to her again like he did the first time back in the 70s, and he told her to read the book of Job, where God spared Nineveh, where Job got the people to repent and put on sackcloth and such, as you read. Out of all the apparitions, all the seers, the mystics, all the timing to do it, had to be the Akita visionary, for the first time in decades, speaking out. And so that tells me that heaven isn't happy with it, regardless of the intentions behind what they were doing that day. It's like the elect have been deceived. It's like they're pushing in the prophesied time of where those who should speak up will fall silent. We're getting to the point where the church is ashamed to even mention Jesus in the gospel. How many speeches have we heard to the United Nations or to others where the Pope or cardinals are not even saying the one name of Jesus? They're going in the point where it's more of mankind, it's more of ecumenical ways. And a couple of things that is pointed out with one of the cardinal elects for World Youth Day is that we don't speak about Jesus and evangelising to get him. We're meeting people where they're at, whether one faith or the other or none. And Stuff like that's just coming out, and it's like, well, why are you having World Youth Day in Fatima, of all places, in Lisbon, Portugal? No doubt there's going to be a lot at the Shrine of Fatima, but they still put on this new way, and they're not listening to what Our Lady's been saying all the way through till now. It should stand out. It should stand out. But we're at a time where so many things are focused not just around these times, but around this pontiff, this pope. And if he is the one, if it's not him, if he passes away shortly and there's another pope that's still coming, yes, there are going to be popes that are going to keep coming. But we've got so many things fitting now between Russia, between France, the fact global climate stuff is still getting more out of control. Everything is coming slowly and gradually, but things I believe are really speeding up. They really are. And you have to take a break away from the news sometimes, and even these prophecies, to get back to what's most important, and that's prayer, fasting, confession, holy mass, living the gospel life as best as possible, finding that union with God, a union of love, of following His will. So I just wanted to leave it there. There's so much more I could dive into, but I'll save that for more videos. I just hope anything I've been saying right now is standing out for you, even if it's just one little thing that just clicks. But there's so many things, and I would advise you, as always, to go to the list of the videos I have in Marian apparitions and the prophecies in chronological order, because you'll see in-depth Fatima, in-depth Garabandal, Akita, Medjugorje and others, and now we're getting to the point where once you know when I highlight Akita as an example or others, you know the in-depth of it and you see how the jigsaw is just fitting into place. I believe in the next couple of years my job might be under scrutiny if it can go that long based on my faith. I believe in the next decade all this stuff might be out so much more that we really need to make such sacrifices, bugging out, getting away from it all, building faith-based communities, because this global agenda of 2030, the cashless society, the global communism Lucia Fatima forewarned us about. And remember, the last decisive battle is over marriage and family. Have we not seen that more and more? Video on that to come. And in the meantime, please give me the thumbs up, share the video. It's not to promote me or the channel. It's at this point I believe truly in my heart, whatever's left to get out there to help as much people as possible to understand everything that's happening, to know when it comes that they have a foundation in the faith. Please share the videos, share as much as you can to reach the people. And until next time, take care. God bless.